I'm actually quite aghast and really sad that the government of the day hasn't paid heed to any voices that have been raised in support of the FTII students. There have been a number of filmmakers from the larger filmmaking community, from FTII, from institutes other than FTII, from the regional film industries, from the documentary field, from the mainstream industry. Any number of voices have risen in support, and the government hasn't paid heed. What particularly saddens me is that the strike is approaching nearly 100 days now as we speak today. And there is still no resolution in sight. There is still no willingness on the part of the government which has been indicated to resolve this crisis in any way whatsoever. I believe all sorts of messages have been sent, all sorts of offers have been made, off the record and so on. But that clearly is not acceptable to anybody. All of us from the civil society and from the filmmaking fraternity want a long-term solution to this problem, of course. But we also want an immediate resolution so that FTI students who are on hunger strike now for 7 days and have been away from their classrooms for 100 days can actually resume what they are there to do, which is to focus on cinema, to learn cinema and to practice cinema. So the government must intervene right away. And we can all look for long-term solutions, but the first step has to be taken by the government of India. I think what we need to do is put this in perspective. There is what I would call a set of trigger demands. Things that must be done immediately, things that were the immediate triggers for what happened, for the students to go on strike and for the protest to spread. Now these triggers are very clear to identify, the revocation of all the appointments that have been made, right from Gajendra Chauhan to the other 4 members on the governing council who have no credentials whatsoever, apart from the fact that they are connected to the ruling party. Such blatantly political partisan appointments have to be reversed. That's a bare minimum. That's what I would call a trigger demand. There have been long-standing problems with the Film Institute, many of which are on record. There are all sorts of reports and committees that have come up with recommendations, right from the G.D. Khosla Committee of the 1970s to the P.K. Nair Committee, which submitted its report 4 years ago. There is a plethora of recommendations that have been made. There are large-scale systemic problems, and part of what what we have raised as national award-winning filmmakers in our petition to the president addresses that. We have, for instance, in our petition to the president, said that that FTII should be totally delinked from the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. The Ministry of I&B has no business running FTII. It should not be involved at all. We've said that the president should assume charge as the chancellor of FTII, like he's the chancellor of other universities. We've said that the institute must be declared an autonomous institution, formally called a center of excellence, and should be granted autonomy. There are models of autonomy available in terms of NID, in terms of IITs, in terms of IIMs. I fail to see why FTII should not be extended the same kind of model. Now, these are systemic problems. It is absurd that the director of FTII is a serving officer of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. That should never be the case. Why should a Babu be running a film institute? What knowledge does he have of cinema? And purely for administrative purposes, how can you anoint such a person the director of the premier film institute of the country? So there are all sorts of systemic problems that need to be dealt with, and those would be dealt with only if all of us, the students' body currently, the collective, the larger filmmaking community, other civil society members come together and raise these issues, because it's not just about diffusing this strike. It's not just about somehow managing this situation. The idea is also to ensure a few things, that A, the future of FTI is far better. The trigger points and flash points that happen periodically, because of the problems we all know and can identify, those need to be addressed in a comprehensive and coherent manner. As a system, things need to be addressed. And the other larger issues in terms of saffronization of educational institutions, which we are seeing across, in terms of the appointments to UGC, NCRT, ICHR, the meddling in IIMs, the meddling in IITs, Ramdev being appointed into IITs for joint ventures with, so all that, this kind of blatant saffronization which is going on unchecked needs to be questioned, needs to be stopped, and that's a much larger demand. It's not just the student collective's demand. It is the civil society's demand, it's the entire filmmaking community's demand. That's the only way we can handle it. It would be wrong if we just say, well, the students must also take on this mandate. We need to do our bit.